Hey everyone, it's Dave Asprey with Bulletproof Radio. Today, for you, I've got UJ Ramdas, who's an entrepreneur and behavioral change specialist with a background in cognitive science. To make things a little more interesting, though, he's also a certified hypnotist. The reason that I've invited UJ on today for you is that he's actually focusing on gratitude, which is something that I've spoken about in quite a few podcasts. And something that I once said was one of the secrets to being a successful entrepreneur or just a successful human being. It's kind of hard to find experts in gratitude to come onto the show because it's not like you go to LinkedIn and type gratitude. But I was fortunate to get hooked up with UJ through our mutual friend, Amir Rozik. So I'm actually really excited to have you on, UJ. Thanks for joining me on the show today.
Dave, I'm a massive fan of Bulletproof Exec, and thank you for having me.
You got it. You also call yourself a biohacker, and there's more and more of us increasingly who just say, yeah, that's it. I hack the environment to hack myself. I hack my brain and all that. Why do you call yourself a biohacker?
Well, I think it's just an innate drive and desire to become a better person. And I've always had that drive ever since I was a kid. I just didn't know how to explain it. And I always thought it was weird or different for trying unique experiments and looking to get more out of my body and my mind. And it was only recently that I realized, well, there's a whole community of people who are doing this. And all of them are doing this in their own way, in their own specific niches. Some of them are athletes, some of them are entrepreneurs, but they're all looking to get more out of their performance. And that's something I'm really passionate about. So I guess that's why I call myself a biohacker.
Just to correct that notion, it is weird to be a biohacker. It's okay though. Do you really want to be average? Come on.
Not really.
You've also had a chance to talk with someone who I'd really like to have on the show pretty soon here, and that's Robert Greene, who's written Mastery and the 48 Laws of Power. And I've referenced several times that the 48 Laws of Power really helped me to understand some of the weird machinations of boardrooms and corporate power politics early in my career. It actually was like night and day. Like, you ever see the John Carpenter movie, Them? Or They Live? Yeah. I think it's called They Live, where you put on these glasses and you realize half the people around you are aliens and you take off the glasses and they're not. So I used to think that everyone in the boardroom was an alien. And then I read the book and I'm like, oh wait, they're people just running by an entirely different set of rules. So it was kind of cool. Why did you choose to bring Robert Greene in to interview him?
Well, actually, this is a great question because when I was 16, I went to the book fair with my father. It used to be like a ritual. Every year, me and my dad used to go to the book fair consistently. And I remember him looking at a book over and over again, and he never used to buy books. We used to go for me because I just love books and I devour books. And he looked at it over and over again, and he told me if I'd had this book when I was your age, I would be a different man right now. And that stuck with me. And he bought the book. And he said, this is not the right time for you. Maybe in a couple of years, this is a little bit of a heavy read. Well, that was a challenge. I always like a challenge. So I picked up the book next day. And it completely changed the way I look at things. Very similar to how you saw the boardroom as not aliens, but people who are interesting and running by a completely different set of rules. I looked at the world that way, and I started to realize a lot of things that I was not paying attention to. It allowed me to see reality as what it is, and I think Robert calls that phenomenon intense realism, being and having the ability to match reality for what it is and being able to observe it without judgment, without criticism, without any sort of understanding beyond what is actually happening. And that allowed me to make a lot of changes in who I thought were friends, to how I spend my time, to how realistic I could be in the world about my appraisal and other people's appraisal. So it was a fascinating read, and I've noticed Robert's continuously produced great work. So I think one of his best books is The 33 Strategies of War. It's a little more heavy and it's definitely more strategic, but for all students of strategy, I think it's a required read.
Very cool. So we have that in common, and I was pretty impressed because I've been meaning to say thanks to him for that book because it really helped my career in my late 20s. So it's kind of cool you had the same thing.
Yeah, I'll be happy to make an introduction to you if you want.
Oh, cool. We'll hit that up after the show. In the meantime, though, like you're interesting. Like you studied cognitive science, which honestly I didn't know was a profession or an academic discipline until I was just finishing my information system studies. I'm like, you mean I could have studied that? Like, why didn't anyone tell me this was so cool? But you didn't finish that, right? You went to marketing. Like, why the cutover from cognitive science to marketing?
Okay, so you bring up two very interesting points. So I actually studied cognitive science very interestingly because that was the second year it was available. It was a very new program, and it was an interdisciplinary program between philosophy, psychology, biology, computer science, linguistics, all the stuff I was pretty much into anyway. And I thought, how cool would it be to get into all these different fields and different departments and find out how to become a better human being, how to help other people really become the best they could be. So it sounded really great and amazing. And I started the program, and by the end of year one, I realized they weren't teaching me how to become a better human being. I was learning academia that was maybe recycled for a few decades, if not several years. And I'm an impatient guy. I like results. I like results fast. And I realized learning marketing, I learned a lot more about changing human behavior than I ever did in cognitive science. And I just realized since I can take a lot of the speed reading and the photo reading experience that I have and double my course load, as well as study other interesting things like hypnosis and do experiments on my body on the side, I realized it was a pretty cool deal. So I learned business, which I always knew I wanted to be into because I knew I wanted to be in control of my time and money. And knowing I could do that as well as learn how to influence behavior and learn practical psychology was exciting for me. And I've always been a fan of results over bland theory.
When you studied marketing, was there an ethics course you had to take?
I think most as just a token of necessity, most professors would say, "Oh, by the way, I have to mention this. You have to do these things by certain guidelines and rules, and you should not use this for bad." But that was like 5 minutes, and it's been proven over and over in science that morality is never transformed by instruction. It's usually transformed by personal experience or values. And there were courses we had like consumer psychology, like marketing strategy, that just way overrode some morality that most people would have.
I had the same experience at Wharton. In fact, they were criticized for not having a business ethics course. And I remember in a marketing course, one of the few ones they had, it's like a super finance school. We did this great mathematical analysis of how it was cheaper to spend $1 to tell someone that your product was good than it was to just make your product good. And I just remember being so like turned off by that line of thinking that I'm like, but it's not okay to do that. Like at a fundamental like human level, you're selling something. If you're making crap and saying it's gold, like you've done something wrong here.
Yeah, and actually what I like to tell entrepreneurs and business people in general is it's actually really bad for your happiness if you make a crap product and you market it really well, because in the long term, your product isn't going to survive, because the best way to kill a bad product is by good marketing.
So you went beyond marketing, though. Now you're into hypnosis, where I'm guessing they did have an ethics thing because it's not okay to make people cluck like chickens and walk around for long periods of time. Or is it? I've never been clear on that.
Yeah, so yes, there is an ethics board to that. I'm actually a member of the Association of Registered Clinical Hypnotherapists. And yes, they do have an ethics guideline. And I think hypnosis is an interesting field because we've explored a lot of things in the world of psychology, from gratitude, journaling, and positive psychology, but very little has been done on altered states of consciousness. Right now, we only have an EEG machine, fMRIs, and ECGs that are typically known to measure any form of mental states. Now we have the HeartMath Institute is doing tons of really great stuff with currents, and I would love to get into that as the interview progresses.
Sure. I think most of the listeners have probably heard a good amount of HeartMath stuff. I'm an advisor to the HeartMath Institute.
Yeah.
But let's touch on that, especially when it relates to hypnosis. And I'd really love to let people learn a little bit about what you've seen as to how hypnosis may reduce anxiety responses, especially ones you can measure with a device like the inner balance sensor from HeartMath, or even the HRV Sense app that I've got out on the iPhone store.
Absolutely. So hypnosis basically goes on the assumption that there's the conscious mind and there's the unconscious mind. So Daniel Kahneman will call it system 1 for the unconscious and system 2 for the conscious mind. And it's defined as the absence of a critical factor or the suspension of a critical factor of the mind. The mind, the part of your mind that keeps on commenting, that keeps on judging, analyzing, it just goes out to lunch for a bit. And if you're thinking, I wonder what that voice is, that's the voice. And so it's just a consistent process where you're training your mind to allow yourself to get into a state that allows, it's also called the relaxation response or your parasympathetic response, where you can allow your brain waves to go into an alpha state and sustain yourself in that alpha state. So it's now shown by many, many studies that state specifically opens you up to suggestions, opens you up to learning. So TV, for example, is a great example of hypnosis gone wrong. And when people open themselves up to that state and they're in alpha and they have all these ads coming at them, speaking of ethics, right? It's now shown that when people watch TV, they burn less calories than when they're sleeping, about 10 calories less. And those suggestions go straight into their minds, just the same way when they're in hypnosis. The suggestions typically that they receive go straight deeply into their unconscious, and it reduces anxiety. The state itself is quite relaxing, but it also reduces anxiety. It eliminates cravings in smoking subjects, and this has been proven. If you go to PubMed and search for smoking hypnosis, you'll find several studies that allows cigarette smokers typically to experience a change of identity. And identity change, I think, is the key when it comes to reducing and eliminating cravings, at least low-level addictions. So I found that fascinating, and I found just certain hacks that you could do with language and NLP and hypnosis very fascinating, which is why I got more into that. And I used it for myself. I used it for some clients, and it was a fascinating way to learn more about human beings, about how we function, about what works, what doesn't.
So define NLP for people listening. We got a lot of people driving their cars. Some people are into language hacking. Some people aren't. So what is NLP and how do you use it in your practice?
So NLP is expanded into neuro-linguistic programming. And neuro-linguistic programming originally was founded, if you want to call it that, by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. So a math student and a linguistic professor. And they basically modeled some of the greatest therapists in the world. Therapists like Milton Erickson, Virgin Satir, other salespeople, people who were extremely good at what they did. So think of them like early biohackers in the 60s and 70s.
Yep.
And they looked at various habits, behaviors, and attitudes that some of these exceptional people had. And they broke it down into strategies, tips, and tools and techniques. So they called the entire process modeling. And they reduced it down to language. Obviously, you could reduce it down to body language and verbiage, but they reduced it down to certain processes that could be run, for example, on people who had phobias. And they developed something called a 6-7 minute phobia cure, where people went to psychologists and psychiatrists for years and years, and now within 7 minutes, with something called double dissociation, where you see yourself see yourself. So you dissociate yourself twice. You eliminate your phobic response. And they've developed several cool hacks like that allow them to use language to influence other people's reality.
So are you using language to influence my reality now? Did you just NLP me?
We're always NLPing each other, Dave. You know that, right? We're using the limit of our language to influence each other's reality.
That's really what podcasts are about when you think about it. My intent is very much to do that, to influence people's reality by interviewing people like you on the show. You also use something called tracking, right? When you're looking at people's behavior outside of just their words, so you can use NLP more effectively. Is that kind of a good explanation of how tracking works for you?
Can you give me a specific example?
Like observing human behavior so you can measure unconscious behavior. So things like body language, the way you move your eyes, subtle shifts in posture, things like that.
Absolutely. I actually pay more attention to body language than words, Dave. I just think words are great. I think words can be very powerful and effective. I think majority of our cognition is unconscious.
Yeah.
And people, it's been found actually in research that when people are asked to lie, they control their facial expressions more than they control the rest of their bodies, because they feel a lot of they're going to be read is based on their face. Experienced body language, people who study body language, there's a great book called What Everybody's Saying. And it's by a guy who's been in the FBI for several decades. And he talks about how the legs are the most honest part of the body.
Really?
Yes, because from a limbic response level, the legs respond to fight or flight. And they're responsible for movement. And they're the most honest part of a person's body. If someone's looking to make an exit, if someone feels that they're under threat, if their limbic system starts to fire up, the legs are the first part of their body to move.
So if you're a marketing guy, which means that you want to lie to everyone, what do you do with your legs?
I have my legs cross-legged right now.
No, in all seriousness, I mean, what's your read on me? I mean, most people are listening to this, not watching it on YouTube, but it's on my YouTube channel. I mean, am I sending off any vibes, like, since you've been on the show? Do you watch all the time, or do you sort of tune in when you're trying to pay attention?
Well, I don't see all of your body right now.
So you're just seeing my chest up.
I see your chest from your chest up, but I think I made an observation when we started the call that you looked like you were just getting stuff together, and you were a little rushed.
Oh yeah, totally. It's because we started interviewing about 15 minutes late. So I just like pulled up to the house and then my Skype crashed. So thank you, Skype, for that update. Anyway.
No, you look and feel great so far.
Oh, well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
So do you actually, as a trained hypnotist, do you watch all the time? Like, can you turn it off, or do you just be like, oh, people are just chilling, and then you like turn on the hypnotist vision and you're like, that guy wants to run for the door, that guy's hitting on that girl. Like, do you have like matrix vision that you can turn on and off?
Dave, it happens on and off, but I enjoy this. This is
it's
what
fun,
I love.
yeah.
I enjoy this. I never want to turn it off. Obviously, as the day goes by, towards the end of the day, I'm less sharp than I am the beginning of the day, which is why I tell anyone, if you want to really see me and want to get the best of me, see me early in the day.
So that this is part of your practice for building just your own personal awareness of the world around you, rather than something you turn on off. Okay, that makes sense. And of the other hypnotists I know, I think that's what most of them would answer. Like, you can get more if you really focus, but most of the time you just notice the same way that you might notice it's light outside or the sun is behind a cloud or something. You just pick up more about people because you're trained to pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people who are really good at any field, look at doctors or surgeons, they have very specific verbiage for that specific field. Okay. So they know the anatomy really well. They know parts of the body that I won't even know how to spell or pronounce. And they have a very, very keen sense of awareness and understanding of that set of words.
Some of the movement guys are like that. Like Kelly Starrett, who's been on the show, runs San Francisco CrossFit. He just watches someone walk in the door. He's like, oh, they've got a weak lateral something or another, and their right gluteus maximus is undersized, and and he can tell that in 3 steps. And I'm always just blown away. I'd love to develop that kind of physical awareness, but you've got sort of that on the social, emotional front as well. It sounds like, or maybe not as well, but instead.
What's great is Paul Ekman, who's done decades of research on emotions around the face. Mm-hmm. He has, I believe there are about 56 muscles in the face. And he's developed a training called the facial action coding system that allows you to distinguish something called microexpressions. And microexpressions is something you can't fake. It's something that is deeply unconscious, that is limbic, that occurs on the face for just a fraction of a second and allows you to read people fundamentally so much better than you would. And the training itself is, you could get it online, you could download it, you could get it on a CD. And within a few weeks, you get to see this in people, in friends and family and lovers and business settings that you didn't see before. It's like a light in your brain turned on and you started to notice all of these subconscious emotions that were always there, you'd never paid attention to. And everybody can do this with a few weeks practice. So if you haven't done it, I highly recommend you do it.
All right, we'll put links to that in the show notes.
Absolutely.
There's another discipline that shares this kind of enhanced awareness, and that's tracking, like tracking animals outdoors. If you talk with guys like Cody London and his school, they know where the animals are. Like in a 100-yard circle, they just know. And they know because they've learned to look at micro signs that you and I would completely not see. And what it is it's enhancing the scope of your awareness. So you've done a lot of training to enhance your scope of awareness of the emotional and kind of physical interaction. And after all that work, you came up with gratitude and the 5-minute journal, which is kind of not what I think most people would expect was where you'd apply this. Why did you end up with gratitude after becoming sort of this neurological hacker, for lack of a better word, where you're looking at all these funny behavioral patterns that are invisible to people like me? Gratitude. What's the deal with gratitude?
Well, I think if you look at the research, Dave, gratitude is just such a game changer on so many levels, because gratitude is really the fundamental emotion, which has a cognitive aspect as well as an affect part of it. For example, gratitude, if you look at the research, is divided into acknowledging a benefit from outside of you, and which is the cognitive aspect. So you have to pay attention to it, and your prefrontal cortex has to be active for that, as well as you have to feel it. You have to really experience the joy of having received something. And those two connect and allow you to reshape your thinking in a very real way. And it all happened, frankly, by complete accident. So a good friend of mine, Alex Icahn, and I, we were just taking a walk. And one day we were talking about business, we were talking about habits and hacking and behavior and morning rituals. And he had a morning ritual, and I was telling him about my night ritual. And every night for 5 years or so, I've done this thing where I open my notebook and I review the day. And early on, I used a gamification technique where I used it to allow myself to write down my goals and figure out the actions I'm taking towards it. I used to gamify the actions that move me forward. But then I just started to use it as a way to review all the good things that happened in the day, because I'd heard so many good things about it and read the research behind it. And so because I was a biohacker, I was pretty intense about it. It took me 15 to 20 minutes. This is not the extensive version. The 5-minute journal is not the extensive version of what I did. We realized it was just way too much for most people. So I was telling him about my process, and he said, this sounds great. How about we create a book that allows people to do it? Because I used to write the questions out by hand every day. I saw the value in that, but it took me a couple of minutes to actually get it. And once I did, I'm like, this sounds great. And Alex Icahn is just amazing at design and creation, like product creation. and I'm the science guy. And it was really cool to work on this project and just look at all the research behind it. So there's actually a bunch of research behind it. This is what the book looks like if you're watching this on video. And the format is the same for every day. So we looked at all the research. We looked at what's the simplest thing somebody can do to become happier every day that is proven by science and that doesn't take a lot of time to do. And the first question, as soon as you open the book, is, what am I grateful for? And this is typically to be done as soon as you wake up in the morning. If you look at the primacy effect, the effect of doing something as soon as you wake up in the morning, it can have a disproportional effect on the entire day. You've heard of people stubbing their toe out of bed. This is the exact opposite of having a bad hair day. And there are three things, no more than three things. If you want to write more than three things, you can fill in the edges. But that is to keep the constraint of the time. A second is, what would make today great? Or to give a better question, what can I do to make today great? Which is, as I'm sure you know, Dave, an effect of priming the brain. You're priming the brain to look at the actions you can take later on in the day that will make the day better. So there's research to show that people, just by thinking they're going to watch their favorite movie, increase their endorphins level by 27%. Just the anticipation can be an incredible source of well-being and happiness. And last question in the morning you ask is, what kind of a person do I want to be today? What's my affirmation? And that's it. Typically should take you 3 minutes at night, right before you go to bed. This is not the 20-minute version that I used to do. This is, what are 3 good things that happened today? Or you could call it 3 wins.
It's kind of funny. When I tuck my 6-year-old daughter in at night, I ask her that. What are the 3 things you're grateful for today? Just same thing. Like it affects what they think about when they go to sleep, right? Do you want to think about the good things or about the bad things? And
absolutely. And you talk about the research, there's great research to show that people sleep better. Once they write something that they're grateful for, they experience better quality of sleep. They experience a greater sense of closeness with their family and friends, and increases pro-social motivation, the ability to do acts without needing to be told to do them. And the final thing is, what's one thing I would do better? How could I have made the day better? And that's just to get a sense of, how do I keep improving? Because that's, I think, one of the primary drives that I have in life, and I would like everybody else to have.
If everyone would do just one thing every day to improve themselves, the world would be pretty different.
Yeah.
That comment reminds me of what Commander Mark Devine from SEAL Fit talked about, and that's kind of baked into the Navy SEAL ethos and just the way of being, where every day you do something like that. And the high performance clients I work with and people who are attracted to the Bulletproof site typically just think like that, and they consider it odd and bizarre that there are people who wouldn't think like that.
Absolutely. It's the alien race, Dave.
It must be those you put on your blinders or take them off, depending on what it is. But
absolutely.
But okay, so gratitude helps you sleep better. But like, what does gratitude actually get you?
So here's my theory on it, based on all the research. And this is not double blind test at all, but this is, I think, pretty accurate reverse engineering of what the studies tell us. I think it expands our self-concept. So we have unconscious limits of what we can accept, the upper limit of what we can accept and a lower limit of what we can accept. I'll give you an example. So it's difficult to explain it in terms of happiness, but let's move to something more quantifiable, like weight or money. So let's look at what someone weighs. Everyone has an upper limit of what they're uncomfortable weighing. So for somebody, it could be 20 pounds overweight, where their gut starts to show, and they don't fit in a certain size of clothes anymore. For somebody, it could be if they've cheated on a bulletproof diet like a couple times a week. They're like, I can't do this anymore. And that's a very different limit. For some people, the lower limit would be having to buy new shorts and new pants, or seeing some ribs where they weren't seeing them before. And what gratitude does, it allows you to see the positive and not just see the positive, acknowledge that affect. The affect component, the feeling, is really important because it encodes the fact that you're expanding what you're seeing that is good in the world. You're expanding your self-concept of how much you can accept, how much positivity, how much growth, how much improvement, how much money, how much discipline you can actually accept. And it's very difficult to be grateful just for yourself, right? So it's usually something that's externally directed. Most people are grateful for their friends, their family, for things outside of them. Even if it's their health, they're grateful for the circumstances that allow their health to be optimal or bulletproof. And that allows them to know that and always stay resilient to obstacles, to mistakes. It's been found people who experience gratitude journaling as an intervention are more resilient. They have actually higher prefrontal cortex activation in times of difficulties, which is huge, because that the main difference of people who are resilient versus people who aren't is, and they've done fMRI research on this, is resilient people activate their prefrontal cortex. They actually start to think about problem solving, as opposed to people who don't, where their limbic system goes off. Their limbic system is their fight or flight. They start panicking, and they get into that negative spiral.
So gratitude leads to resilience, which leads to higher performance.
Absolutely.
And that's the reason that I'm such a big fan of gratitude. What else does it give you?
So it actually, one of the oldest studies, and the first studies in gratitude, was done by Robert Emmons. And the very first study was just people writing something they were grateful for once a week, 5 things we're grateful for a period of, I believe it was 10 weeks. And there were a bunch of interesting effects. So 3 conditions. 1, people write things they were grateful for. 2, people write things that they were hassled by. And the third, which is the control condition, which is just events. So people write 5 events in the last week. And they were tested for multiple things, including happiness, how much they exercise, how they felt about people around them, etc. And 10 weeks later, they found that these people in the gratitude condition exercise 1.5 hours a week more than people who were in the control condition, which is substantially higher considering it's only once a week. It's not daily, and it's only one exercise. The second was their pro-social motivation actually increased, which is they started to do more things for their friends, their family, their colleagues, people they're in business with. Because they started to attribute all of these good things to them, they felt a sense of reciprocity. They wanted to do things for them because they recognized how much and how lucky they were to have these people in their lives. It's been shown over and over again that appreciation, especially expressing appreciation to people on multiple levels, can be extremely effective. John Gottman, who you might have heard of, who is the foremost researcher on marriages and what keeps marriages together and what keeps marriages apart. He can tell within, I think right now, about 3 minutes, like within 3 minutes of meeting a couple, he can tell whether they're going to stay together or not with a 90% accuracy, which is pretty scary when you think about someone who can look at body language and cues. He talks about a 5-to-1 ratio of positive affect to negative affect for a thriving relationship. And gratitude improves that substantially. Actually, it's one of his 7 principles for making marriages work is a Thanksgiving exercise where people share with each other what are the things that they're grateful for each other. And one of the side benefits of the 5-minute journal I'm finding, Dave, is people were telling me my relationship with my wife was so much better because we do the journal together and we share with each other what we're grateful for. And it's completely transformed our relationship.
That makes so much sense, because one of the things that I've learned, and things that I do with my clients when I take them through the 40 years of Zen program, is that gratitude is the first step of forgiveness. So if you can find something to be grateful for, even if your day was absolute crap, and you still dig out that gem, it lets you let go of whatever you're holding, the guy who cut you off in traffic, or your boss yelled at you, or whatever it was. Without that spark that comes from gratitude, you're not going to be able to do forgiveness. And forgiveness is not telling the guy that you forgive him. Forgiveness is you just stopping paying attention to it, and it has no more power over you. Otherwise, Absolutely. When you go to sleep at night, what's going to happen? You're going to think about that instead of thinking about what you're grateful for and all the other things. So I think your journal is a neat hack, because it's a very small amount of time in order to get this info down. Why is it on paper? Like you're killing trees, chopping them up. It's nicely bound. Why didn't you make this some kind of cheesy iPhone app?
It's funny you ask, because we actually have an app in progress right now.
Is it cheesy? Okay.
It's not. I don't think it's going to be cheesy, but the original reason why we made it on paper is because there's something that fundamentally happens when you put pen to paper.
It's true.
And you start writing. So there's an entire science devoted to the experience of coding, handwriting, and understanding personality traits through looking at handwriting. It's called graphology. It's recognized in courts as ways to find out whether a person is lying or not. But also, what it does is when your brain looks at your handwriting, your brain begins to notice that, hey, this is something that you've committed to yourself. There's a great book called Influence by Cialdini. And there he talks about an important principle of influence called commitment and consistency. And people who write something down are magnitudes of times more likely to follow through on that action, as opposed to just having said it to somebody.
It's funny. Napoleon Hill was the first guy to say, write it down, put it on a mirror. I did that when I was 16. I said, I'll be a millionaire by the time I'm 23. And I did it when I was 26. So I don't know if it worked or not, but it's a single data point, but it was pretty cool. And I didn't write and stay a millionaire. So of course the company went bankrupt a couple years later, but it was a fun ride, right? That's the harder part. Get rich and stay rich. So if you're doing affirmations, that last one matters.
Stay. Yeah. For the people listening. Yeah. Make sure you keep that stay in there.
Live and learn, right?
Absolutely.
I've experienced something different though. People under about 25 who grew up with technology interact with the world in a different way. And I'm rare in that I guess this coming month I turned 41, but I've had my own computer since I was 8, before DOS was around. I had a pre-DOS machine. Leave it to, my dad was in tech, so I got his hand-me-down K-Pro 2. And what that means is that I interact with the world using a keyboard very effectively. And I've done some very heavy duty personal growth work in the course of biohacking myself. And one of them was, you have to write with a pencil, and it was, you write all the horrible things you think about yourself, like a really tough exercise. And I said, no, I'm using my laptop. And I kind of fought with the teachers about that of this course. And finally I won. And I typed it out, and it was so good that they anonymized it and read it as part of the training, because it was so negative and dark. But I think that when I talk with people much younger than me, 10 plus years, they are losing that pen to paper because they were told to write, and after that they just typed. Like their interaction with reality is different than the way you would. What are you, about 30-ish, 35-ish?
I'm actually 25.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Dude, you look a little older than that. You got to work on your anti-aging regimen.
Well, I'm actually looking at, yeah.
So you still stick with the pen and pencil. Do your peers all do that too? In terms of, do you notice this effect?
So I'm different in the sense I'm an avid journaler. So I have
that's why.
3 or 4 journals going on for multiple things. A couple of them are online.
Okay.
And a couple of them are offline.
And you think the pen is more powerful than the keyboard for that?
I think the pen can be useful when you're looking to reduce a bunch of data. For example, I use the pen when I'm looking to make incisive decisions. I'm looking to like cut out a bunch of like nonsense that I don't want my brain to throw at me. So what I'm looking to reduce, problem solve, I usually do with pen and paper, because I find I write down only the most important thing. When I'm looking to brain dump, I usually do it on a keyboard, because my hands can move a lot. My brain can just basically speak to my keyboard.
Got it. So you're looking to have to do the filtering process that goes through.
Exactly.
All right. Not to get too like into this, I hope everyone listening thinks this is interesting too. Just, I don't know if you pay attention to how you interact with your data, but as someone who hacked the way I interact with data, this actually matters. Do you use a special pen, or do you just use whatever pen's in front of you?
Usually I use the same pen for the journal.
Got it. That doesn't surprise me either. Like I once had a gift. Someone gave me an $800 celluloid pen, and I'm like, that'll be my special pen. And then I realized it was like one of those fountain pens, and I used it 3 times. I'm like, this is way too much work, and I stopped using it. So that was my plan, to have a special pen, but it fell through. Nice.
It's just the routine, the ritual, right? So you just follow the same thing on the same time with the same pen, and it just builds a certain anchor in your head. Just builds a certain sense, a certain feeling. As soon as I start opening the journal, I already start to hack into the state.
Yeah, so the ritual of journaling at night builds its own power. And ritual, absolutely, even if you're like a hardcore skeptic rationalist, and there's a lot of people who really like Bulletproof who are in the rationalist community, ritual still has neurological impact, whether or not you want to be cognitive and rational based on everything. The fact that you get additional performance from ritual for no apparent reason might scare you if you believe you're fully rational, but it does work. So if you're rational, you should do things that work. So you can chew on that one, but there's something to this ritual thing.
Absolutely.
Now, I asked if you'd be up for giving a discount code for people who want to try out your journal. I'm not making money. This isn't like an affiliate thing like that. This is just a discount code for people who want to check this out. So thanks for listening. And UJ, thanks for coming on. What's the code for people who want to check out your new journal?
So they can just go to www.5minutejournal.com. And after they filled in their information, the final page before they check out, just write down the code is Bulletproof. Really simple. I'm a huge fan of Dave and his show and his material. I've been following it for a while now, and I really appreciate all of you listening. And I hope you enjoy it. You're welcome to contact me. My email is uj@5minutejournal.com. And thank you so much for having me on, Dave.
You got it, but you're not done yet. Because there's one question that I ask everyone on the show. And
of course.
The question is, what are your top 3 recommendations for people who want to perform better, want to kick more ass? I don't mean top 3 journaling or NLP or anything, just your entire life's journey. What are the things that matter most that people should know about?
So the first thing is, as soon as you wake up, make gratitude a practice. Just make it a practice. Make it something that you do every day. Even if you don't do the journal, make it an emotion. Make it a way of being. As soon as you wake up. If you don't have time for an extensive morning routine, that's okay. But just allow yourself to wake up with that sense of gratitude. It can really make a massive difference. And I know you interviewed Mark Devine, which is one of my favorite interviews, actually. He mentioned the same thing. It's so incredibly critical that we do that. So that's the first one. The second one, actually, thanks to you, eat Bulletproof and become a student of your body. It's really changed a lot for me when I've started to notice what foods I'm sensitive to, how my clarity changes, how I feel a lot more sluggish when I eat certain foods, and I log everything. So if you eat Bulletproof and become a student of things that you really gravitate towards. For example, I really enjoy a drink called Fresca. Right, which is chia seeds and lemon, and it's drunk by the runners of New Mexico.
Isn't it? I grew up in New Mexico, by the way. So Fresca is just like a cheap brand of soda, right?
Okay, I'm probably getting the name wrong here, but it was mentioned in the book Born to Run.
Okay,
and he mentions how basically these runners use chia seeds, lemon, and honey. I don't use honey. And they usually marinate it overnight, and they use it on their long runs because it allows them so much fuel for their body. And I love how much clarity it gives me.
Oh, it's Chia Fresca.
Chia Fresca.
Okay, yeah, Fresca is like an off-brand soft drink in New Mexico. Chia Fresca, I got it. That's hilarious. Okay.
I know. And the third one is maintain a meditation practice. My meditation practice has been crucial to my performance because it just helped me stay so on top of things. I just know when I get into, I get on my seat and I get into this just stay and amplify it. I haven't quantified this as yet, but it has been so crucial for me at times in my life when I really needed it, and it's really made all the difference for me.
Well,
So,
thanks for sharing those, UJ. I appreciate it. And where are you based?
I'm based out of Toronto, Canada right now.
Awesome. It's good to see some fellow Canadians, although I'm not really Canadian. I'm just one of those Californians who moved up here, but I at least like being in Canada. So
It's a great country.
Thanks again for being on the show. And we'll put links to all of the books and researchers you mentioned, even Bandler, although his books are entirely indecipherable. And we'll put links to the 5-Minute Journal and to your work as well. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, Dave.
You could tell they'd been together for 100 years. And they hated each other. They weren't talking to each other. And we were kind of watching them. And finally, after about 20 minutes, he says to her, "Pass the salt." And, you know, you can read between the lines. And what he's saying is, "Pass the salt, bitch. You ruined." So this is what happens when you don't repair your brain. You become a grouchy old guy whose world has collapsed.